And now on to our dinosaur of the day, Mantellosaurus, which was a request from Morgan via our Patreon and Discord. So thanks.
It's a good one.
Yeah. It's got a lot of history. So it's an Iguanodontian that lived in the early Cretaceous in what is now Western Europe. It's been found in Belgium, England, Spain, and Germany. And Mantellosaurus, it looks like an iguanodon. Originally, it was thought to be an iguanodon, and if you saw it, you might think it was an iguanodon.
So you're going to do the smells like an iguanodon, sounds like an iguanodon.
Must be a duck.
Duckbill.
But the difference is Mantellosaurus is more lightly built than Iguanodon, and it's also more closely related to Ouranosaurus. So it's probably more derived than Iguanodon. Mantellosaurus was probably semi-quadrupedal, and it walked on all fours when standing still or moving slowly.
Like a kangaroo.
Oh, good point. Its wrists were fused together, and it had hands like hooves, so it could probably walk on those. The forelimbs were shorter proportionally to Iguanodon bernissartensis. The forelimbs of Mantellosaurus are about half the length of its hind limbs. The arm bone, the humerus, had a ridge known as the deltopectoral crest, which probably means it had powerful deltoid and pectoral muscles.
I think most dinosaurs have that, but it must have been bigger on Mantellosaurus.
Yeah, so Mantellosaurus is estimated to be about 23 feet or 7 meters long. It weighed about 1,650 pounds or 750 kilograms. And it had a low skull. It had an hourglass-shaped head. At least it looked like that when you're looking at it from above.
I've never thought of that before with an iguanodon, but they do.
Mm-hmm. So Mantellosaurus was an herbivore. It had teeth up to 1.5 inches or 40 millimeters tall, and it had dental batteries and a large beak. And it had tall neural spines with ossified tendons, which maybe it had a ridge along its back. Mantellosaurus had large thumb claws or spikes that was possibly used for defense, but its arms were pretty short, so maybe it used it to fight with other Mantellosaurus or to dig out roots or tear bark off trees or open up some food. There were trackways found in the same area as the holotype of Mantellosaurus, and that may show that they traveled in groups because the trackways showed juveniles and adults.
They're traveling in herds.
Yeah, exactly. The type and only species is Mantellosaurus atherfieldensis. It used to be known as Iguanodon atherfieldensis. The genus name means Mantell's lizard, and it's in honor of Gideon Mantell, who discovered Iguanodon. So Gideon Mantell had a sad story, and we've talked a little bit about his sad story on our show. But he basically became obsessed with dinosaurs and stopped his medical practice. He was a doctor. And he wrote books that didn't really sell, and though he sold fossils to the British Museum, he couldn't make a living as a paleontologist, so his wife and kids eventually left him, and that explains why he was bitter towards his wife at the end. Anyway, he died very bitter, and also with a spinal injury on November 10th, 1852.
But he was very important to early dinosaur research.
Yes. And the species name of Mantellosaurus is in honor of Atherfield, which is the village on the Isle of Wight where the holotype was found. So the holotype, taking a page from Garrett, NHMUK R5764, was found in 1914 by amateur paleontologist Reginald Walter Hooley in southern England and then reported in 1917. And Hooley posthumously named it Iguanodon atherfieldensis in 1925. Mantellosaurus then was named by Gregory Paul in 2007.
When it got pulled out of Iguanodon and put in its own genus.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of complete and nearly complete skeletons have been found. So Iguanodon has been described as a wastebasket taxon. Darren Naish and David Martell said in 2008 it was, quote, taxonomic dumping grounds. I saw it's also been called a taxonomic grab bag.
A lot like the old megalosauroids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really like using iguanodon or iguana, whatever, add your suffix, because it is pretty controversial.
Mantellosaurus has been found in many parts of Europe, so it's gone by many names. There's the Maidstone specimen, which we talked about in episode 87 when we covered Iguanodon. That was found in a quarry in Maidstone, Kent in 1834. Part of it was blown apart by gunpowder and then scattered, but a lot of it was on this large slab of Kentish rag sandstone. So William Harding Benstead owned the quarry and excavated the fossils and then wrote to Gideon Mantell. And Mantell said that it was an iguanodon based on the teeth. He offered to pay 10 pounds for it. Benstead asked for 25. So it took a few months, but then Mantell and his friends got the money and bought what they called the Mantell piece, like mantelpiece.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Which eventually became the Dinosaur and Maidstone's coat of arms. And Mantell based his iguanodon restoration on the Maidstone specimen, but he did make some mistakes, like he thought there was a horn on the snout. But that's the thumb claw.
And it was very much a quadrupedal, typical lizard sort of shape at that point.
Yeah. But, they had to find more specimens to figure that out. So the Maidstone specimen was considered to be Iguanodon anglicus, and it's now at the Natural History Museum in London. And it turns out it came from a type locality that was much higher than where the original Iguanodon teeth had come from, so it probably can't be Iguanodon anglicus. In 1888, Richard Lydecker said that the specimen was the lectotype of Iguanodon mantelli, but Iguanodon mantelli was named 2 years before the Maidstone specimen was found, so that wasn't accepted.
Yeah, the specimen that's on display at the Natural History Museum in London is awesome. You can walk all the way around it because it's in a glass case and it's near where Dippy used to be, off to the side, right in that front entry hall. It's definitely worth taking a look at if you can.
Yes, I'll get into the history of the Mantellosaurus at the museum in a little bit.
Nice.
So the Maidstone specimen is now classified as possibly Mantellosaurus atherfieldensis, and it's CF, which means very uncertain. There's also Dolodon bampingi found in Belgium, and that's considered to be a junior synonym of Mantellosaurus atherfieldensis. Originally, this specimen was thought to be Iguanodon mantelli. It was named in 1881 by George Albert, and then it was thought to be Iguanodon atherfieldensis in 1986 by David Bruce Norman. And then it was named this new genus, Dolodon, by Gregory Paul in 2008, based on it being more quadrupedal compared to Mantellosaurus, which had the shorter forelimbs proportionally and a larger pelvis, and therefore was more likely to be bipedal, or more bipedal. And then in 2010, Kenneth Carpenter and Yusuke Ishida synonymized Dolodon with Iguanodon seali, based on a specimen from the Wessex Formation in England. And then in 2012, Andrew MacDonald and David Norman said that Dolodon was Mantellosaurus. So kind of a whirlwind there.
Yeah.
Mantellosaurus specimens have also been found in Sauerland, Germany. They were disarticulated. And in Spain, they found an articulated hind limb. They also found 3 specimens from the Arcillas de Morea Formation and a specimen from the Rubielos de Mora locality. The fossils found in Germany were thought to be Vectosaurus valdensis, and then in 1990, David Norman found them to be juvenile Iguanodon atherfieldensis, which of course now is Mantellosaurus. In some of the places where Mantellosaurus was found, there was probably a flash flood or mudslides, such as in Germany, where it was found. There were also fossils found in Haute-Marne, France, that were originally called Heterosaurus neocomiensis, named by Jacques Cornell in 1850 and thought to be different because its teeth were different from Iguanodon, Hylaeosaurus, and Megalosaurus, the original 3 dinosaurs. And the full name Heterosaurus neocomiensis means different lizard from the neocomian.
It's pretty funny. Different lizard, Heterosaurus. It's different than the other things we found. It's like, yes, that's why you're naming a genus. What else?
Yes. Well, I guess that's before we knew how diverse dinosaurs were.
Yeah.
So in 1968, this dinosaur was redescribed and stored with Iguanodon material. And then in 1992, Valerie Martin and Eric Buffetot found it to closely resemble Iguanodon atherfieldensis, now Mantellosaurus. So as Garrett mentioned, Mantellosaurus is on display in a glass case in Hintz Hall at the Natural History Museum in London, and it's the holotype. It's known by the nickname Mantelli, and it's been in the hall since 2017, and before that it was hung from the ceiling in the Dinosaurs Gallery, where it's just jam-packed with dinosaurs.
They got quite a few things hanging from the ceiling in there. I didn't realize any holotypes were up there. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anywhere else where they have terrestrial dinosaurs hanging from ceilings, especially holotypes. Jeez.
So originally, the Natural History Museum in London had Mantellosaurus standing like a kangaroo with its tail dragging, and then it was shown as semi-quadrupedal with its tail lifted to help show movement. The skeleton was removed temporarily in 2019. Pretty sure we talked about this. This was to scan all the bones and study them and make the data available to scientists around the world. And they did all of those scans in 3 days. They waited for the museum to close one evening, and then they just took the bones from the mount. And the team used laser and handheld scanners to build these high-resolution digital models of the fossils. Some of the bones were left in the mount when they were doing this because they're attached to it, like in the pelvic area, so they used a handheld scanner.
Yeah, I think sometimes they drill through the bones to mount, or they used to do that to mount them, and then anytime you take them out, it's a little risky that something might break. So yeah, better off probably just scanning it as it is and ignoring the mount part in your scan.
And that skeleton, the Mantellosaurus holotype, is nearly 86% real bones.
Wow.
And then casts make up the rest. So they have, for example, the left arm, but not the right arm. But if you have the left arm, you can figure out what the right arm looks like.
Yeah, that's great. Because, if it's just the mirror images you're missing, you basically have 100% of the bones. You know what it's all like.
Mm-hmm. And they do have the real skull, but that's not on display. The real skull is stored in the basement. Susanna Maidment, who was in charge of the scanning, said that they found some differences between past descriptions of Mantellosaurus and what they saw with their scans, so there will be a redescription of the holotype at some point.
Cool.
For those of you who listen to our Dinosaur of the Day segment and you like it, please consider becoming a patron. We take new Dinosaur of the Day requests from our patrons and offer a bunch of other perks as well, so check out our page at patreon.com/iknowdino. Or click the link on the left.